Superman was released in 1978 and it stars Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, Marlon Brando, and Gene Hackman. With Batman v Superman coming out on Friday, last week I reviewed the original Batman, and today I'm reviewing the original Superman. And just a warning in case you haven't seen this film, there are a couple of minor spoilers in this review, nothing that will ruin the movie for you, but I do talk about a couple of characters and scenes pretty in depth. And whether or not you care about spoilers, I still highly recommend that you see this film because it is literally the granddaddy of superhero films. So if you are a fan of that genre or just a fan of film in general, this is one that you should definitely add to your list. And unlike the original Batman, where he has already been Batman for a while, this film is truly an origin story that starts on Krypton, then shows his development as a kid, then a teen, then Superman. Which, with this being the first ever superhero film, I think telling the story this way was an absolute necessity. And yeah, the entire look and style of Krypton is pretty dated today with all the white that they have and the glowy suits that they wear. And there are some definite scenes where it looks like they are on a set. Looks aside, the story that they were trying to tell on Krypton was told very well, albeit a little long at times, but when that planet blows up, you actually feel something. And I also think that Marlon Brando did a great job playing Jor-El, especially when you consider that he refused to memorize any lines, and in every scene he's in, he is reading off of cue cards. And a big reason that this movie works is because of Christopher Reeve. He is the perfect Superman, not just off of looks, but he plays that character and Clark Kent so well. And because Christopher Reeve was so unknown at the time, he is actually the third build in the opening credits, behind Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman. My favorite part about Christopher Reeve is how differently he portrays both Clark Kent and Superman, both in physicality and personality. As Clark Kent, he's very hunched back and delivers a lot of his lines with a stutter, and then as Superman, he's very confident and charming, to the point that it's very believable that no one in this world would assume that this guy would be Superman. I thought Margot Kidder was great as Lois Lane, and she is a pretty strong female character, especially for the 70s, but at the same time, you can definitely see why Superman is smitten by her. I really like the mugging scene where Clark is like, oh, don't do anything, you don't want to get us hurt, and then Lois Lane is like, screw this, and then attacks the mugger. It shows just how great and strong of a character she is, but then also furthers how she would never believe that Clark, who actually faints in this scene, could be Superman. I also like and buy into their relationship and thought they had great chemistry, and it never really drags the movie down. Even the flying scene I like because for the first time as an audience, you are able to see what Superman sees through Lois. Although I will say that that scene does go on too long and the whole narration with Lois is very weird and cheesy, and I wish they would have just gone from him saving her and then cut to him dropping her off. And while I may not be the biggest fan of Lex Luthor as a villain because he is basically a bad guy with money, I thought Gene Hackman played him very well. I really like the introduction to him with the cop and the train because it shows right off the bat just how evil this guy is. And while he may not be a physical threat towards Superman, I thought they did a really good job at showing how Lex can mentally overtake him. And finally, because Gene Hackman refused to shave his head or wear a bald cap throughout the vast majority of this film, I really like how they worked around it by giving him different hairstyles throughout the film and having different wigs behind him in the background. And I really enjoyed the direction by Richard Donner. He brought this whole sense of wonderment throughout this entire film, and I thought he did a great job at bringing the serious tone to this film while still having a lot of fun and campy moments. And you actually don't see Reeve until about 45 minutes in this movie, and I actually think that is a good thing because Donner took his time to craft this story, and with Superman being such a hard character to portray and care about, you have to take the time to build a proper backstory. And when this film was released, it was actually the biggest budget film of all time, and watching it, you can definitely see why the effects were so groundbreaking and why audience members truly believed a man could fly. I really like the progression of the scenes of him saving people, starting with the helicopter, then the burglar, then the boat, then Air Force One, because as an audience, it shows us more and more of what this guy can do. Finally, we have to talk about the score by John Williams. It is so epic and iconic, and anytime anyone hears that theme, you automatically think of Superman. And just like the theme fits Superman very well, the entire score suits the film perfectly. It adds this whole sense of wonderment and tension throughout. I also really like how the score, like the movie, doesn't always take itself seriously. So for the campy scenes, the music is actually pretty silly and it works so well. As for flaws, aside from some things I have already mentioned, I do find the movie a little too long, especially in the first and second act. And yeah, the effects are definitely a little dated, but this film came out in the mid-70s, so why wouldn't they be? And for me, the one that always stuck out the most was actually when he's a teen and he's running with the train and his legs are going all weird. And there are definitely a couple of scenes that are a little too campy and dated, and for me, the whole character Otis is pretty annoying, but I definitely like how Lex interacts with him. And finally, I can't talk about the movie without discussing the ending, which I won't spoil for you because if you have seen this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, it is way too over the top, but for me, you just gotta roll your eyes and accept that it's happening. Overall, I really enjoy this movie, especially when you consider that it is the first ever superhero movie. And yeah, it might be a little dated, but overall, it really does hold up. I'm gonna give Superman an A-. If you have seen the movie, let me know what you thought in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, or you can just click right here to see more.